Press Council of India or PCI was set up by the Parliament in 1966 for preserving the press freedom and maintaining the improving the standards of journalism in India. PCI lays down several guidelines for print and photo journalists since journalism is a huge field which involves reporters on a varying range of issues from politics to crime, foreign talks to investigative reporting or even legal reporting. Therefore, PCI lays down several guidelines which help journalists and media houses to follow objectively and its balanced reporting. Some of the important highlights of the conduct of the journalists are: 1. The news should be accurate and fair. The journalist should verify the fact before publishing it. The Press Council of India cautions journalists against defamation. Defamation means hurting the reputation of a person or an organization through writing or speech. The Indian Penal Code has strict provisions against defamation. Second, the Press Council lays down several regulations concerning the privacy of people being reported. A journalist is advised not to intrude into someone's privacy unless it is a matter of public interest. Similarly, the PCA also suggests giving privacy to public representatives, political figures, or other personalities. The public figures should be approached with consent or with genuine reason, and the journalist should respect his personal life. Third, special caution should be taken in case of reporting in legal cases, legalization and court hearings. In case of legislature or parliament proceedings, the journalist should take care to report facts with caution. The information meant for public only need to be reported, as there are several affairs in the house which are often prohibited to be reported in the public. In case of legal reporting, special care should be taken as there are legal jargons and a simple error could change the entire context of the case. Therefore, fair, accurate, and genuine information about the case and proceedings should be reported. 4. PCI has strict regulations against obscenity, nudity, vulgarity, and similarly, the glorification of social evils like sati, dowry, or child marriages should be prohibited. Fifth, one of the most important regulations to the journalist regarding national interest: any media house or journalist should ensure that any information which hurts the nation's integrity or security should not be published. Also, in cases of communal violence or other conflicts, special care should be taken so that the violence is not escalated. Similarly, sensitive information from conflict zones or war zones should be cross-checked before publishing. PCI also suggests journalists from using provocative headlines. Sixth, foreign relations or another sensitive issues which requires precautions and a clear understanding of the issues before reporting. It involves bilateral agreements, trade talks, defense, and other sensitive meetings which are loaded with information and past historical details. Often, foreign reporting is therefore given to experienced journalists to maintain accuracy and minimize any errors. 7. Investigative reporting is one of the most debated areas in journalism. It is a very thin area where there is a contest between the right to privacy and public interest. PCI recommends investigative journalism only in cases where the public must be aware of the information or truth is being hidden from the public eye. In investigative journalism, the journalist should avoid half-baked truth, imaginary facts, doubtful truths, and sweeping remarks. Eighth, Plagiarism means copying information without giving due credits and attributions. Plagiarism is a violation of the Journalistic Code of Conduct. PCI prohibits lifting information by media from any other news organizations and other sources. Similarly, illegal reproduction of any excerpt, part, or any report is prohibited, as it is also a form of plagiarism. Now let us look at the Broadcast Content Complaint Council by INB Ministry, Information and Broadcasting. In India, the media is self-regulatory. The self-regulation is governed by media ethics, which journalists figure out what is the best thing to do at the moment. But self-regulation or media ethics in itself is not the answer to the media regulations. Therefore, the government made two bodies of former journalists to regulate the media. While News Broadcasting Standards Authority regulates the broadcast media, the Press Council of India regulates the print media in the country. The details are as follows. First, News Broadcasting Standards Authority. It is an independent body set up by the News Broadcasters Association. Its task is to consider and adjudicate upon complaints about the broadcasts and the television news channels broadcasting. The 9-member authority comprises a jurist, 4 eminent people from the field of law, education, medicine, science, literature, and extra. The citizen can register a complaint against a news channel by directly visiting its website. NBSA could fine a channel and deliver judgment. However, the past records show that its judgment is not binding. Second, Press Council of India. Press Council of India or PCI regulates the print media in the country, composed of senior journalists and former High Court judges, and the PCI is an autonomous body established in 1978 by an act of parliament that regulates print media and maintain its independence. If any news is against the public taste or journalistic ethics, then it has the power to censor the news. Now let's discuss the ethical representation. Journalism faces a very difficult challenge while representing reality to the audience. On the other hand, the journalists have to report the truth, whereas on the other hand, he also had to consider the views of the audience. Journalists not only have to report on politics and city affairs, but there are more difficult situations like human rights abuses, war conflict, health issues, or epidemic, which are also to be reported. In these cases, the journalists have to face the challenge of showing reality and not showing graphic or unhealthy content on the television. Therefore, the situation demands a mix of both, where the balance should be maintained in terms of ethical representation. Take the famous case of a renowned iconic photograph of Napalm Girl, shot by Associated Press photographer Nick Wood, which won the Pulitzer for showing the war crime in Vietnam in 1972. The photograph was taken down several times by Facebook, citing community standards regarding the nudity. The photograph encapsulates the war crimes of the US in Vietnam while showing a nude child running for life after being burned after she was hit. The iconic image became a center of discussion where many argued that the photo shows the war crimes, the collateral damage in the war, and the child mutilated by war. On the question of nudity, Yasmin Ibrahim argues that there is no nudity but the raw, full frontal visuality of violence and trauma that foreshadows the war. The picture became a national memory where people took the affairs of US overseas seriously, and tough questions began to be raised. Journalists in this case have to deal with the dilemma of whether to show the massive damage from a war or to show a visual that might be considered pornographic or unsettling to others. Ethical representation has become a major challenge in news debate shows. It is often being alleged that news anchors run media trials in the news studios, often changing the public consensus over the matter. The opinionated reports on the television easily brand people into groups accused as convicts, and they differentiate between the good and the bad. One of the striking examples was in Arushi Talwar case, where the media wrongfully made the parents of the murdered girl as the accused. The media reached new heights of irresponsibility by confounding speculations and facts, spreading canards and defamatory stories. The parents of the murdered girl were demonized as decadent, immoral, unfeeling, unrepentant, scheming, and resourceful. The ethical representation also demands to blur visual content where there is the sight of blood or injury, so that it doesn't offend the viewers. The victim's identity in case of violence, rape, and other abuses are not revealed. If there are visuals, it needs to be blurred. The names of the victims are avoided. In the case of the separatist movement, the violent groups are called the militants rather than the using other offensive terms. The terminology is a very important. In conclusion, privacy, if you talk about the ethics in media, acts as a self-regulatory measure for the media. It comes into play when the journalists face conflicting issues while reporting. Print and broadcasting journalists often come across challenges of informing the masses and taking consideration of the journalistic codes as well. There were ethical issues that journalists have to take into consideration. For example, in investigative journalism, there is a very narrow purview between public interest and intrusion of privacy. In the case of TV9 investigation reporting against a woman police officer, the reporter's character assassination of the woman officer and her personal relationship was not in the interest of journalism. Such news could have been avoided, as it was to catch eyes and get viewership. The news became a character assassination and misuse of power rather than investigative news. Journalism is one of the main pillars of the modern democracy in terms of the fact that it is not just opinion makers but holds the government accountable and serves the people. It exposes wrongdoing and challenges those in power. The same media isn't believed to infringe privacy or work against the interest of the people. Therefore, ethics is the parameter which helps in maintaining the sanctity of the media and preserving it. So I'm sure you have learned a lot about the ethics of media. As a future journalist, you should be knowing all these details so that you will be careful while you're reporting. Thank you very much, and see you in the next lecture.